All right, we are back from the TAT. This is actually the first time we really sit down to talk about the TAT.
Yeah, we stayed away from each other for a while.
Yeah, I don't know why that happened. 3 months on the road with your brother? Ugh. No, it was a good trip.
Yeah, it was.
But we got busy with honeydews and stuff. And what I thought we'd do is just sit down and talk a little bit about some of our gear that we took on the trip. Uh, we probably should have done this right after we got done with the trip, but we were pretty pooped and it took a little bit for our bikes to get back to us, and then we unloaded them and cleaned it up before we even thought about unpacking. Just let you see exactly what we packed up. And we packed things up really pretty darn tight. I think we had it pretty snug. I'll put some pictures of our rig in here, but we had it pretty tight.
Yeah, I mean, I thought we did real well because nothing, while on the trail, even hitting the hard stuff, nothing bounced loose. Everything stayed tight and secure.
Yeah, on the road, my shoe popped off. One of my shoes popped off, but we fixed how we carried that later. And then we had a failure of a tool container, the Givi.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Yeah, the back of it popped off when I hit a bump, and my tools went splattering all over the road. And it was right in the middle of a construction site. It was kind of messy, but we got that squared away, and that all worked out really well. That's the only kind of real equipment failures I think that we had.
Yeah,
So-
well, your carburetor, you had an issue
Yeah, we had a
there.
little issue with the carburetor, which is a known thing with DRZs, and we got helped out by a group in Idaho,
It was a
a KTM
KTM.
dealer. Man, they were awesome. I'll put their name down in the credits and stuff, but because they took us right in where the Suzuki dealers said, "Oh, we'll see you in about 2 weeks," and the KTM guys took us right in. We had pre-scheduled with them anyhow for tires in Idaho, so it worked out really well. But let's talk about our gear. Let's talk about the bikes a little bit. We ran the DRZ 400s. Mine was a 23, and yours was a
13.
13. They're basically the same bikes. You were riding your son's bike, and he had that thing modified for
Yeah, like a hooligan bike
Hooligan
with a
bike.
real sticky street tires, smaller diameter,
Yeah.
great big giant rotors. So it made for, the conversion never did completely get the way we wanted it. For instance, he had to lower the kickstand for it to hold the bike up with those lower tires, and now we had to try to modify the kickstand to make it longer. Never did quite get it as long as it wanted, so parking the bike, I had to be real careful and make sure I had a uphill inclination for the kickstand to hold the bike up. But anyway, we got through that.
Yeah, well, and he also made the airbox modification. We had to change that a little
Yeah, yeah.
bit.
He drilled it out and opened it up, so it would suck water in like yeah. So yeah, we had to close that up.
Close it up a little bit, but
Yeah.
it did well even with the modifications that he did with the bigger carburetor and
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
And
He went with the larger carburetor, yes, and
So-
yeah. I think it all worked out okay. Even in altitude, we never had to do any real modifications to the
turn the
carburation.
throttle up a little bit.
The only thing, adjusting the idle was the only issue that we had because it would, the idle would get really low.
Yeah, and those bikes did great. I mean, the low end, that first gear is forever long, and it's a very forgiving bike as far as lugging up the inclines in Colorado and some of the stuff in Moab. It was a great bike. Little top heavy. I mean, that's why I called mine Dolly.
Yeah.
I had a couple issues with it.
I could still hear him in my headset going, "Come on, Dolly, no, 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 no."
Yeah, I laid it and I took a little rest with the bike a couple of times just because it's just top heavy.
Yeah, he likes snuggling with Dolly.
Yeah, I
But
like to
anyway.
snuggle with Dolly. Yeah, then move on. So modifications to the bikes, we put skid plates on them. They were DeVoe. That worked out great. I think we got those all from Rocky Mountain ATV. We put
Radiator
radiator guards, and I was hemming and hawing about putting radiator guards on it.
That was a blessing.
Yeah, and it's not really from rocks and debris that we
Grasshoppers.
Grasshoppers. Oh my God! If we had not had those on there, the grasshoppers.
Some of
would
those
have clogged us up.
grasshoppers might have, put a serious dent in those fins.
Yeah, so it helped us out significantly with the grasshoppers. That was crazy. We didn't put front rear rotor guards. The bikes had rear rotor guards. I had picked up the DeVoe and never put them on. We didn't need them. We were fine. The TAT is not that technical. There are just a handful of areas that are a little rough and bumpy that you have to be careful on. But for the most part, it was pretty easy riding. Would you
And
say?
you know, there was a few times that we ventured off the TAT, thinking we were on the TAT, and pushed on through it, that were, you know, really sketchy riding.
Yeah, like an example is Marshall Pass in Colorado. I mean, there's an easy part of it that you could have gone up, and we took the non-easy part with what did that guy call them, baby head rocks or something?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh
They
my
call
God!
them baby.
I mean, like it was fun. I mean, it was a lot. It was a blast, but it was a lot of work.
Yeah, that's where he did a lot of talking to Dolly.
I talked to Dolly a lot, but Dolly and I did not take a nap on that one, so
You
it
know?
was good.
Yeah.
So bikes worked great.
Just back to the DRZ for a moment. You know, a lot of folks have experienced oil usage in the DRZs. David didn't really have an issue with oil usage.
Yeah.
I did, and it was really inconsistent in the way that it used the oil. I thought it would be from, you know, engine braking on some of the mountain roads, especially in like Tennessee and West Virginia and those corkscrew areas, but or open road, you know, high speed, you know, holding the bike at 55, 60 miles an hour for a period of time. I thought that it would use more oil, but none of that seemed to really make a difference. And then all of a sudden, boom, I'm, you know, half a quart low. I never really was able to figure out why I would have. Didn't you see that as well?
It made no sense at all.
Yeah.
And we always carried extra oil with us, and we found these little guys on
David,
Amazon.
Yeah, David came up with these. Where were these made? In Sweden.
Sweden, but we got them off Amazon.
And because of the way we carried them, my wife came up with this little cap to go on top of it that I think maybe saved the valve a couple times. You know, and just liquid laundry detergent cap that just went over the top of it that protected when we put it in the luggage. But yeah, this made topping off the oil very easy.
Yeah. And we kept up with the oil. We did a couple of oil changes on the road.
And we used the mobile T4.
Yeah. And we'd stop at O'Reilly's, and they would loan us the pan and the funnel. And,
that was unbelievable.
Yeah, it was easy to do, except for the one time we had the infamous hailstorm in the middle of changing the oil.
Yeah, we get the oil all drained out and it starts hailing.
Yeah, that was an absolute hoot. It's like, oh man, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
So that was not a problem. So let's talk a little bit about tools. We carried tools, and what we did is, since there's the two of us, we split and we're riding the same bikes, and I purposely got the DRZ because we spare parts and everything, we split the spare parts. We didn't carry that much. We carried an extra clutch handle, a clutch cable, and a shifter lever.
Yeah,
and
we did end up using
the shifter lever, and that's all we needed.
You know, I mean,
and that was when I took Dolly for a rest.
And I think we might have been able to hammer and beat and bend that one back, but it was so much easier just to stick the other one on and roll on.
And I think that's one of the things that we talked about. Sometimes it's just easier to have a spare. Now, the tool roll, Dan had gotten a gift from his
Dennis, brother-in-law.
And we put all our tools in there, and we pretty much sat down and figured out everything that we use. We did our maintenance using these tools, so we always knew, so we had enough tools. And that was our basic toolkit. Worked out great. Danny carried that, and he carried it in that GIVI container tool. And that was, we mounted that on the bikes. It had a lock on it, which was great, so we can just lock them in there, leave them, and they were always there. Now, I have a Ural, and it's notorious for flats. So I carried the flat stuff. So
and man, what a godsend it was.
Yeah, the flats. Yeah.
Not that we have that many flats, but when you do have, it's, you know, and you're out in the middle of nowhere. So finding a campsite with a picnic table is a big plus.
Yeah, it's a lot easier, especially when we had the one flat. It was a pinch flat. And we were in a lot of sand in this canyon, and we decided not to change the flat there because it was hold air for a little bit. And what I did is I took one of the larger DC air pumps, and I just took it out of its plastic bag. And I have a little cable that it acts like a little extension cable that hooks up to my battery, and I can attach it, and we would stop, pump the bike up until I can get to an area that...
Yeah, we would get a little more than 10 minutes, but not 15 minutes of ride time before we'd have to stop and put more air in it to give you an idea. So,
but it was worth it. It's a lot easier
Oh,
to
yeah.
change a tire up on a picnic table than it is on bending over in the sand, especially at the end of the day when you're tired. That's one of the things that you need to think about with spare parts that you carry or all your gear is how are you going to be able to handle this at the end of the day after you've been riding all day and you're tired, or if you happen to fall over and you're being banged up a little bit and bruised up and pooped, you want to make everything as convenient as it can. So this little air pump works great. There may be some newer stuff out in the market that's smaller, that's easy, but this had a lot of capacity. This was pretty nice.
yeah, it did it quickly.
It did it quickly.
Yeah.
The other is spoons. I do like my spoons. So they're Motion Pro. I carried 3 of them. You could probably get by with 2, but I can tell you with 3, it makes it really easy.
It's worth carrying the extra one.
It is. And there's the Bead Buddy. The Bead Buddy, when you're putting the tire back on, is a blessing. Now, one of the things that we did do is I carried a patch kit just in case. But since there's the 2 of us, we carried 2 tubes. We carried the 21-inch and the 18-inch. If I was on myself, I would probably just carry the 21-inch instead of carrying 2 tubes. But it's nice not to have to stop and ding-dong around with patches. Our plan was to patch the tube that went flat. But after looking at because it was after Utah that we had the flat, so I had several areas where you could see the tube had been pinched. And we were running the heavy duty tubes, not the extra heavy duty.
But just the extra,
Yeah,
the heavy
I
duty.
mistakenly ordered the extra heavy duty. Man, they were just
Thick.
They were too thick. They were a pain to deal with. So I decided not to deal with those. Now the other item that
And we carried those tubes on the fenders, on a little fender bag.
Yeah, fender bag.
And that's what we kept the tubes in. And it had 2 little pockets on it that we kept extra zip ties in, which came in real handy because you didn't have to, if you needed a zip tie in a hurry, you didn't have to go digging in all your stuff to grab that zip tie. For instance, David's riding along, and I'm like looking over at his bike going, oh, that's odd. I thought his chain was flopping, but it wasn't his chain at all. It was his chain guard. The bolt had come out.
Right.
You know, and it was like, really? Because those chain guards on the DRZs are plastic, and you got the metal screw going into it. So eventually it just got loose.
Yeah.
And
we had put Loctite on them.
Yeah,
I mean,
it Loctite. But
crazy.
So, but you're able to stick a zip tie in it, zip it tight, and move on until that evening where we could try to fix it better.
Yeah, and one of the things that we took with us with the tools is a little bag of all the basic nuts and bolts that we thought that we might need. So we had nuts and bolts with us in case we needed them.
Well, you bought that kit for the DRZ.
I bought a kit, yeah.
And coming out of those were a nice fit.
They were a good fit, and I just took what we needed. I didn't take the whole kit with us because it's too much. But I just figured out what we might need. Now the bag Danny's talking about, we ran with the Tusk gear for most of our stuff, and this is that fender bag, and these things fall off. Yeah, without a doubt, they fall off. So what we did is we modified the front fender a little bit, and we put a metal brace. I think it was B&B. Makes a little metal brace that goes reach support, give a little bit more support to the fender. We put that on, and we ran a bungee underneath it, and somewhere down, we used the Roco straps, and we used a small Roco strap, the wrap go underneath that metal brace and held this down, so this thing wasn't going to fall off.
And it went nowhere.
It went nowhere.
That was
great. We never
great.
had to worry about. And these straps work wonderful. You can tighten them down. They're really safe. We use that for tightening down all of our gear in the back. And we'll talk about that a little bit. But this worked great for holding the tubes and a couple little ancillary things for changing the flats. The other tool that we use that I really liked, and I got a little grief, this is kind of a luxury item. You don't need it.
Yes, you do.
Yeah. It's called the
Yes, you
Baja
do.
No Pinch tool. It's bulky though. So I was able to get some of it into the toolbox in the back, but some of the other parts were just too big, and a lot of things we just strapped to the frame because I didn't plan on having to use this, and we didn't but have to once, so I just strapped it to the frame with zip ties, and we didn't have to worry about it until the time came, and then it was easy, just pull a panel off and pop it out, and off we go. So this is a lifesaver, getting the tube back on in a relatively short period of time, because you don't want to, I mean, this was at the end of the day we're doing it, and you just don't want to ding dong around with it. And it was pretty simple, easy, and a flat. I mean, I think we got that thing done in about 30 minutes, 45 minutes.
Yeah, not even. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
it went really nice.
Yeah, and one of the things that I'll talk about is one of the pearls that I'll give you is now
Wait
this
a
one-
minute, yours wasn't pink.
I know. I don't know where mine is. I tried to give it Danny, the pink one. But these are yoga mats. You can get them at like Walmart. They're cheap and they're very thin.
Oh my God, those
They're a
came in
lifesaver.
handy in
Yeah.
ways you would not imagine.
You don't need the full length. We cut it in half, and each
And
had
cut
their
it in
own.
half. Yeah.
They're great for when you're doing the tire change. You know, the one thing we worried about is keeping the sand out of your bearings. We lay those things out, and we can do the change on those, and you don't have to worry about getting sand in your bearings. They really are great. They're great to sit on. They're incredible when you go to take your boots off. You get to take your boots off. You don't get yuck in all your
Put them in front
socks.
of the entrance to the tent.
Yeah.
And you know, I mean, when you gotta bend down to do something, you're down on your knees. I mean, that just having that mat underneath you, just it made a world of difference.
And it did keep the floor of the tent really clean, because you're in a lot of sandy areas. When it rains, mud and stuff, you keep it all out. So those things didn't take up any space at all. They were really wonderful. That's definitely a pearl. I would not go without that. Makes it really pretty simple, easy. Let's talk a little bit about what we wore gear-wise.
Yeah, well, just a moment here. You know,
Yeah, what
David
do you
was
wanna
talking
talk
about the modifications to the bike, and something else I wanted to say. You know, my brother spent some time adjusting the bikes to fit us both, and insisted that we got it done. He adjusted the sag.
Yeah, we got the sag.
Big difference, because when I rode the bike before the sag was adjusted versus afterwards. You know, guys, if you don't take the time to make sure you got your sag right on the bike, you're making a mistake. You know,
because we resprung the front, the forks and the back.
Change the
springs.
springs on them, change the bones in the rear.
Yeah,
you know,
dropped it, and you have to, when you set your sag, set it for your gear.
Yes.
Put your gear on, pack it up, because your gear. I mean, when we first started off, we had like 40 pounds of gear when we left. We thinned it out, and we'll talk about that a little bit. But yeah, set your sag appropriately. It makes a really big difference in how that bike handles. Definitely does.
It does.
So helmet-wise, we're wearing the helmets a lot, and I've had a couple concussions. Yeah, that's all right. We ended up wearing the same helmet. It's the Klim, the Cryos Pro. It's a carbon fiber. It was a great helmet. It was light. They send you with little extra parts. I dropped mine and broke that little screw up there, but duct tape took care of that while we were on the trip. I liked it. It was light, and I mean, you're wearing this all the time, so that worked out really good. I put the chin mounts
For the cameras.
for the cameras. These sucked rocks at first. They kept falling off. So even today when I use this, I have a lanyard on it in case the camera falls off. But the problem with this is that they didn't stick real well. We got a hold of the company, and they sent us an accelerator and more glue, not glue, but the 3M tape, and that held up real well. Why they don't send the accelerator to begin with, hopefully they do that. But if you get the mounts, I like the chin mounts now, but if you get the mounts and you don't have the accelerator, just buy it. It's a 3M accelerator. Put it on there, sand it up a little bit. It kind of killed us to sand
A new helmet.
a new helmet, but this stays on there really well. The chin mounts, I think, work better than any other place that we tried mounting.
Oh yeah, they were great for panning or whatever you're doing.
Because I would do it. I put mine when mine fell off. I had a handlebar mount. I put it on the handlebar, and you try to see stuff. And if it's the only camera you got, you can't. It was impossible to quickly be able to get stuff. let's see what else we talked about. Oh, electronics. We did the cardio, pack talk. I can say with when these things work, they were great.
Yeah, yeah, they're very pleasant and very good, but
Yeah, they didn't always work. There's two methods. One was Bluetooth, and we used the Bluetooth a lot, but we also tried to use the other Vox system that they have. DMC or DNC.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's where you can talk to multiple people and it links. And it would break down. We couldn't hear each other.
Yeah, we think maybe it was searching to make contact or something.
So we would go back and forth between the two. And one of the other reasons we like these is we got this and we got the Instant 360s. These are our cameras. And I like these because, thank you, Instant 360s. We like these cameras and this system because they communicate with each other. And we were supposed to be able to talk to you guys and it would override on top of the video. So you'd hear both of us talking. It only worked 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, most of the time it sounded like David was talking to himself.
Myself. And then,
which he did a lot anyway.
I did. I mumbled under my breath about it, but we won't talk about that. But the other thing was that it also would clip out the engine. So all of a sudden I'd be videotaping, there would be no engine noise, there'd just me talking every now and then. And that's really kind of boring. So this was frustrating. Since I've been home using it, it seems to be working great just for video, just for audio. I have not hooked it back up to the video. I think I'll do something a little different and do the old-fashioned way with an extra microphone, so I don't have to deal with this. But the cameras, the Instant 360, that was a really pretty nice camera. It does have some issues though. They need to have a locking feature because we would have it set up and at like 60 frames a second and
then you touch the daggone camera and all of a sudden you're in a different mode.
Yeah, without even knowing it, it would switch to something like 15 frames per second. So now you get zip, 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 and it was annoying. And at times we thought it was recording and it's not recording. I mean, we missed a hole on Moorloop Road. The really rough section that we wanted to videotape.
Both of us. Yeah,
gone.
It's like, really?
Yeah, it was really frustrating. And the other was when you ask it to stop recording and start recording, just by saying those 2 words, it just now quit. They need to, those 2 words, start and stop, are very close to the sound the same. They need to change that to like begin and end, something totally different, because it automatically picks up on that. And there's times that when I was editing, I could hear myself just getting really more frustrated saying that S word.
Yeah, and here's an example. He's yelling so loud into his helmet to get the thing to cooperate with him. My camera's hearing him through my headset and doing what he's asking. My camera's doing what he's asking, but his isn't.
Mine isn't. It was really frustrating. And the other thing is they've got a lens protector, which is really good because Dan rode behind me quite a lot, and I was throwing rocks at him all the time.
Yeah.
And I popped the protective lens on it. There is not a way to remove that protective lens on your own, like on the GoPro, so you have to send the camera back. Matter of fact, that's where the second camera is. It's back at the company, and it's a pain in the butt sending it back. And they only replace it once, I believe, but they replace it once free within the first year. We're going to see how that goes, but that's a little on the frustrating side. But
at least they covered it.
Yeah, images, sound, everything. It's a decent system.
I liked it a lot, actually. When it worked great, when it worked good, it was great.
And we got the little remotes. They're about like this size. And
it goes on the handlebars,
so you can actually see.
Yeah, David didn't care for his as much as I did.
Yeah, you used it a lot. I got frustrated.
Because manually just turning it on and off, I could glance down and know that it was recording. And otherwise, you didn't know for sure if it was recording without looking at the camera, and you can't see the camera. So I got it on my chin mount, and I'm looking in my mirror on the bike trying to see if it's on recording.
Yeah. So that part's frustrating.
Yeah. So having that remote on the handlebars, made that easier for me.
Yeah, and I just didn't want any more stuff on my handlebars. And in the beginning on my handlebars, I had my Garmin XT, I had the roll chart, and I had my phone with a quad lock. Now, here's the deal. This thing, I watched Sam talk about the roll charts because originally when it was done, it was all roll charts. And I thought, okay, he really felt that you needed to use a roll chart, and we use a roll chart. Probably the most exciting thing about doing the roll chart is we stopped at a campsite just to put the next roll on.
That got you. That put an end to it for you.
Yeah, and I'm out there. I got this thing stretched out, and I'm rolling it up on it. And two other cat riders come by. God, I can't remember their name. He was driving a
But they thought that you were rolling.
They wondered why I was rolling toilet paper. I was like, oh, that was great. And then later, we're riding with them. And we go around a tree, and I get caught in a rut, and I laid the dolly down, and this thing flopped off, and that was it. I'd had it with this because it doesn't line up like it used to. When it says 3.4 miles and you turn right, you should be able to go 3.4 miles and turn right, and it wasn't accurate anymore. So it really got to be, I'm looking at this, I'm looking at this, I'm looking at this, and finally it's like, you know what, this is too confusing. I'll get rid of that, and I'll concentrate on just using one system. I loaded up our waypoints on this, and the XT worked out really well. It helped us find hotels and restaurants and gas stations. It worked pretty well. I will say the mounts for these are not really for off-road because this would want to fall off. So it has a lanyard, and not only has a lanyard, I use a little clip here, a cotter key, to go behind it to keep it from coming loose, and that kept it from popping off. Otherwise, it would pop off and be dangling like that, which is not a lot of fun. But this worked out pretty well. It's a little large, but it did us well.
Well, you needed that size screen a lot of times.
Yeah, you did. But I'll tell you what, the phones, Dan ran just his phone
with
Guru, and that worked out really well. Guru worked great for putting us on the tracks and stuff. I used the quad lock system on mine, and it had the anti-vibration and the charging thing on it. That worked really well. But Dan had what?
Yeah, it's an older system called Active.
Yeah.
They actually don't make that mount anymore, Dave.
Yeah.
You know,
but it worked.
Yeah, I really liked it because it's very very small.
Yeah.
When you take the
it's
phone off.
Yeah, it's a nice little system. And his did not have the anti-vibration, and the whole thing with the anti-vibration is it's supposed to mess up your camera, and your camera's been working fine.
Yeah. Well, actually, that's why a lot of people didn't like this Active system, is because it appeared to be loose all the time. Well, that was the anti-vibration portion of it.
Okay.
You know, so it was designed like that.
Yeah. So
and I never had it fall off. Never.
Yeah.
You know.
It was solid.
Yeah.
And I think I don't think you really need this for the trip. It was nice, but the reality is I think you can end up using one of the
apps like Guru.
And I would use, like some people are using their last generation of phone because we all have them stuck in our drawers somewhere. And that tended to work out really well.
I felt like we were able to stay on track better and made less U-turns when you kept your Guru set at like 2,000 feet and I kept mine at 1,000 feet.
Right. That worked out
because you were able to tell the turns that were coming up, you know, and then when we got closer and we're trying to decide, you had 3 turns you could possibly make. You know, I think I said at the 1,000 feet, I was able to be more correct most of the time.
And I think if there's one advice, no matter what system you have, use it for at least a couple months before you go on the TAT and have it down to where you feel really comfortable with that
Which
system.
we didn't really do.
We didn't have time to do that. So we were getting used to this and this and this, and it was really frustrating with realizing the U-turns that we were having. And I can tell you, I used Sam's name in vain many times on the U-turns.
Poor Sam.
Because you could go down the road a mile before you realized that you were, you know, the separation showing up on the GPS, that you were going down the wrong way. And
that was okay unless it was a really rough section that you just went down and it was the wrong doggone way anyway.
And you had to go back the other way. And we were in Tennessee. I think we were in Tennessee, and Yeah, and one of the roads was closed. It was blocked off by the Forestry Service, and we had to go around it and try to pick up. And we had kind of got lost, and the GPS was driving me nuts, and we were getting low on gas. And we pulled into, I mean, the town basically had a post office and a gas station and a little grocery store
With
type
old
thing.
manual pumps.
Old manual pumps, yeah. And they had they served food at the gas station, and there was like 4 or 5 old farmers sitting out having lunch. We pulled into the UPS store, not the UPS store, but the post office to try to regroup and figure out where we're going. And this guy comes out of the post office, lo and behold, he used to be a sailor, and he rode his bicycle across the United States, cross country, and we were talking about
U-turns and getting lost.
And he said that it had happened to him a lot, and it really frustrated him until he realized that was part of the adventure. And after that, it was like, you know what, he is absolutely right. This is just part of the adventure. Relax. It's all right. It's okay. It's fine. And then we asked him where to get gas, and he told us where to get gas.
Who had the newest gas tanks?
Who had the newest gas tanks. Because some of those backcountry places, the gas tanks are kind of old, and gas is so-so. So we pull in, get gas, use the bathroom, and the old farmers are looking at us in our riding gear, and we'll talk about our riding gear. And they're giving us like, oh, God, these guys. And we take off, and we make our left like the GPS said.
Yeah, this is funny.
And it's like, okay, this is the wrong way. Then we come back, and the farmers are looking at us, and then we go the other.
You can feel their eyes staring at us.
And it's like a 5-way. So then we go the other way, and that's not the right way. And then we come back, and they're looking at us, and they're just, you can see they're laughing their ass off. And then we go another way, and it's like, that's not it. And we come back, and we just started waving at them.
There was like 4 or 5 times.
Oh, man, they were laughing. They're probably still talking about the idiots and the bikes.
Yeah.
They're all decked out. And then we finally got back on track, so we were all good. So it's just part of the adventure, so relax. It's going to happen. Turnarounds are not a big deal. All right, so let's talk a little bit about electronics.
Yeah, well, back to the camera for a minute. You know, like we said, the Insta360s were a good camera. They worked for us well once we got acquainted with exactly the way they worked and the quirks that they had, but the batteries in them.
So the batteries.
David got the case that had 3 batteries in it, and plus you have one in the camera.
Yeah, and it charges. It's got a little charge on it, so we put these in the
little headlight bag.
Yeah, headlight bag.
Yeah.
We don't like tank bags, and we don't like handlebar bags, so the DRZ has that
shield over the
headlight. So we just bolted them to that, and this
with a little metal brace behind it to give it a little more stability.
And we would put these in there, and that's pretty much what we charge.
Yeah, we had a charging port where you got the 2 USB ports.
Yeah, we had that.
Showed I like that too. What brand were those? They showed the voltage.
Amazon. It showed the voltage.
They showed the voltage, and so if there was anything going on, you could see it instantly.
Which was nice. You just had to, if it rained, you had to unplug everything and cover it up because it could short out.
Yeah.
But it was a nice system, and these guys, I'll put it down below where we got this. They're Amazon. These worked out really.
Oh yeah, because you just rotate them out, and whenever we would stop, your battery on your camera was down to maybe a quarter of it, and you just go ahead and change it out. Put another one in. I was kind of like wanting to run the battery totally out, and David's like, no, or stop. So go ahead and change your battery.
Yeah, because usually this is what happens with cameras. When you see something that you really want on the video,
the battery goes dead.
The battery's dead. And it's like, so just change it. And we ran them the whole time. And unfortunately, when you do that, you end up with a lot of video. And seriously, we have 2 terabytes worth of data. It's a ton of data to go through. And it's just hours and hours of boring motorcycle ride.
Yeah, David's like, just stick needles in my eyes if I watch us riding down the road one more time.
Yeah, we wanted to pull out the clips of the kangaroos that we saw, and it took me hours to find the kangaroos.
A month?
Yeah, a month. It was crazy. And the other thing is, since you're using so much data, those little cards that you slide in there are relatively inexpensive if you buy them in bulk. I tried downloading them every night and putting them on the laptop. That turned into a disaster because it takes a long time to download that much data. And it ended up filling up my laptop, and I had to get a little external drive. It's just cheaper overall to buy a bunch of those and buy a pad that you can store them in. and I would keep them in like some order so you know sequentially where they are. That's going to be the easiest thing to do. Charging. We use these little Anchor chargers because we camped a bit, and this is off Amazon. I'll put the link to it. This thing worked great.
It worked great. I was
It charged
surprised.
everything. It charged,
I mean, it charged our headsets.
it charged our headsets and our phones. We were charging off the bike, so they stay charged all the time. But it charged our headsets. We had a lot of little ancillary gear that we'll talk about shortly. It kept everything charged up well for a couple days, actually.
Yeah.
So it was really good. And if we needed to, we hook them up to the bike, and the bike would charge them up. So this was definitely worth it. And it's not that heavy.
Yeah, and it's, well, the main thing is it's thin and you can stick it in. I put it in the bags I have on the side of the little saddle bags for the gas tank. I kept that in the side. You know, that was one of my things I had to carry.
Yeah.
And it was, you know, it was thin and it would slide right in. It was like, oh, that's great.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, when you pack, you want everything as light as you can get it and as non-bulky. So thin was really important because there are some that were probably a little cheaper, but they were bulkier. And Dan carried another brick. You want to show the other brick?
Yeah. Well, there's a reason behind this one.
Yeah.
But and you know what? This is a workhorse. I mean, I very seldom that I get more than one. As you can see right here, I haven't charged it since we've been at home, and it's still showing a full charge. You know, but because of some of the things I had to use along the way, the variable voltage, and one of the things I used required 24 volts. And this thing, you know, was able to give me 24 volts.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah.
And this was another Amazon product. It worked. It was like I just hoped that it worked out well, and it did.
Yeah,
really well. You want to show them why you needed that?
Well, how many guys out there that are going to be doing the TAT need a CPAP? And what's the trade-off of carrying a CPAP with you? Well, my brother, being the big brother that he is, made sure that I was able to take my CPAP with me.
Yeah, because I knew he wasn't going to bring his CPAP because it's a pain in the butt. I mean,
You know,
they're
it's just-
huge and big. And
Yeah, well,
we found
he found the not to advertise for ResMed, but ResMed Mini. You know, they make a ResMed Mini that you can use off the wall or use with a charger like this, and that's why I kept this, because it requires 24 volts, and I could get basically a full week off this battery and not even use 3/4 of the charge that's on the thing. So I'm like, wow. And then we would stop and stay a night at a motel, and of course, first thing I would do there is take it and plug it in and charge it off the wall. So, you know, and I had the full mask outfit. Oh, and speaking of that, my wife trying to pack me up, you know, how do you protect something like this on the bike? And Chinese takeout.
yeah, that worked out great.
She doubled up and then able to take the mask apart, stick it in there, and you know what? It didn't crush, it didn't get ruined, it made the whole trip. So very surprising.
And weight-wise, the battery pack weighs more than...
Oh yeah, the battery pack
granddad.
weighs more than all the other gear for the CPAP. So, you know, and I got some of my, again, those that use the CPAP know what I'm talking about, the Bluetooth connection that you have with the CPAP. This ResMed Mini has that, and there was a couple times that I got a perfect 100% score out of it, sleeping out in the woods. So thank you, Dave.
Yeah, it worked. He got some sleep because he's grumpy when he doesn't sleep. So it was a selfish thing I did because I didn't want him grumpy.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about clothes. So clothes-wise, we didn't pack a lot of clothes. Matter of fact, I tried keeping my clothes.
Yeah, I mean, with that old thing of turning your underwear inside out. Yeah, my brother practices that, by the way.
All right, so
all right.
all right, let's move on.
Yeah.
These guys. So I use these little packing cubes, and I pack my clothes in there. And I did have,
That's a fully packed one.
yeah, he's got a fully packed one. These work really great.
Yeah, and that had all of my shirts and t-shirts
Yeah.
and and because it was down under, anything that was like underwear and stuff and socks went in this one. So I had the two. That's the way I.
Yeah, so he packed up good.
You know.
He didn't like wool. I used wool t-shirts. They're real thin. They work really icy cold, I think is who makes them. But that part worked really great for me. I tried the wool underwear. That was a ridiculous, that wool underwear is.
It's stretched out on you.
Yeah, it's good for the first 2 or 3 times, and then it's like
it
it doesn't hold the junk in place, and it's like really uncomfortable. It's
Dave,
up your
would you
crack.
please pull those up?
So I was like, okay, we're going to regular underwear. So that worked out a lot better for me. You want to show them what the riding gear you wore,
Well,
or your sleep gear?
well, okay. Well, when you sleep in the tent and you got your dirty clothes and all that, my brother gave me a set of scrubs. And you know what? At first, I'm like, Dave, seriously, you're going to give me a pink pair of
I tried
scrubs?
getting pink as much as I could.
I mean, seriously, this boy picked on me. But I have to say that.
Did you wash those yet?
I have not.
Jesus.
I have not washed those yet.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I was like,
Oh.
oh my God, they're still stuck in that bag. Yes, I
So one of the things
slept much better in them.
Yeah.
You
And one of the things that I believe in, it's like, don't sleep in what you eat in. Because there are bears in the area, wildlife in the area. We didn't really have any run-ins, but we were pretty careful. When we saw a lot of bear activity around campsites, we just went someplace else. But I don't believe in keeping food near where you're sleeping and wearing clothes that you eat in. So that helped. So what else do you wear
Yeah,
here?
well, we got the Thor jacket that was very versatile for me with the air vents on it and all. It made it to where I could throw it on or take it and stuff it in my bag on the back of the bike quickly. We used cargo nets over the top of all of our equipment, and that helped, gave it an extra stabilization, but it also made it quick and easy to take something like this and stuff it in that cargo net without having to get into your luggage.
And we got rained on pretty hard, and that stayed waterproof. Now you've taken all the armor out of it.
Basically, I took the armor out of it, Dave, because I had this underneath it.
Yeah.
And so, as heavy as this is, and it has all the armor inside it, the back protectors, the elbow protectors, the shoulder protectors, as heavy as it is with this mesh, and this is a Knox.
Yeah, that's a good.
As heavy as this is, it was very comfortable, even in the hot days. And if I would get a little bit cool, something, I had a jersey that I could put over it that was also vented, but it made it doable early in the morning when you're just a little bit cool and don't want to get too much, because there was a few times that we dressed because it was really cold, and then we got into a really rough section where you're really working hard just to ride, and we got overheated, had to stop and peel off, because it was like otherwise you're so yeah, that was what and on the bottom section, the pants were also another Thor item. These Thor pants. I did have a few issues with these.
Well, you kept forgetting to zip them up.
Well, the pockets, number one. The pockets, if you get on the bike and you're riding and you didn't zip up those pockets, you might as well stop, get off the bike to zip up the pockets, because you're just not going to do it sitting on the bike or riding the bike, because it's just, they're positioned to the point that you just cannot do it. At least I couldn't, and I tried numerous times. My biggest issue I had with them was the knee protectors. They got some really neat pockets at the knees on the inside where you can slide the protectors in, but the flap that holds them from the top is so thick that it hit right across the top of my knee, and after about 3 or 4 hours of riding, my knee was actually getting bruised from it. So I ended up having to take the padding out and yeah, it just didn't work, you know. So and you really want that knee protection, because it just really hit me hard. So ended up when we got to a place that we could, I took that flap out and just left the open pocket, and then I was able to put that knee protection back in, with that open flap. But by that point, though, my knee was so irritated, it took me quite a while to get where I could get used to it. And we put on modified foot pegs on the bike with some much wider foot peg, for doing all the standing that we were doing, and a much sharper spikes on that foot peg. What I found, though, for me and my riding style, is that the inside edge of my pants was getting torn up and ripped up from my leg. Every time I stood on the ground, I inadvertently would scratch the side of that foot peg, and it was actually tearing my pants up. So that's where another one of the many uses of taking some original heavy-duty black Gorilla Tape.
Yeah. Gorilla Tape.
Yeah, I mean,
always take Gorilla Tape.
I tried some of the other tapes, and and David said, you gotta get the Gorilla Tape. So here's kind of what it looked like by the end of the ride, and that was probably the third time I put the Gorilla Tape over that inside section of the pants. But other than that, the pants served me very well. Yeah. They were waterproof, a little bit more water resistant, and so waterproof, and they had decent zippers on there to open up to where I didn't get overheated. And I wore them every single day.
Yeah, for 3 months we wore these things.
But when it got cold, I did have some long johns. And
it did get cold.
And these were, what are these? They're a thermal, and to load them in the bag, for me, I found a heavy-duty Ziploc baggie, and putting them in there as flat as you can, I was able to slide them into the bag and able to slide them all together because they were in the bag. I tried to do it without the bag, and it was just a disaster for me. But this made it packing and unpacking quick and easy.
Now, we didn't have these at the start of this trip because we started this trip in July, and it was too hot.
Right.
It was going to be warm until we got to where Colorado basically is where we started getting into some of the cold weather.
Yeah.
It was cold. 32, 34 degrees. And at that point, we had their spouses met us in Telluride, and they brought us some of our heavier stuff because some of them, we'll talk about camping stuff.
Yeah, and we offloaded some of the other things for them to take back with us.
We got rid of some excess weight, and they brought us some little heavier stuff. And in the world of backpacking, you have stations where you can have stuff delivered for you, and you can actually have that done at a post office. The post office will hold a shipment for you. So if you're going to be doing the TAT where you're going to be getting into cooler weather like September, October, then you could have it shipped somewhere in Colorado and pick it up and then ship some of your other stuff back. And that's a really good idea. There's no sense carrying heavier stuff in the West Virginia, Tennessee area. It's just going to take up space and excess weight. Just have it shipped. That works out so much better. Thor stuff, I don't know if I'd ever buy anything from them ever again because their customer support really stinks. We bought that stuff from Motorsport, and the back protector was ripped on that, and they never ever got back to us. Motorsport made it good by giving us a different armor. It actually turned out to be better armor than what came with it. But
different brand,
yeah. And even when we contacted them about the wear and the pants, they never got back to us. And
right.
Other companies are really, really, really good, and we'll talk about one of those.
Well, now that you're talking about that, it's like on the pant leg going over my boot, the zipper pull broke.
Yeah.
I'm like, the zipper's holding up fine, but the zipper pull broke. And I'm like, here I am trying to get the doggone zip, and my brother says, paperclip.
Oh yeah,
Slide a paperclip in there and use
and why
that as
I
your
had
pull.
a paperclip, I don't know. That's,
Yeah, but you know what?
Your-
It was wonderful. So now I carry a paperclip
Paperclip.
in my headlight bag. You know,
Yeah,
and that's the reason why.
we tend to be belt and suspender kind of guys. Speaking of
Belt and suspender.
suspenders, I ended up getting the Liat.
Here's my suspenders.
Yeah. Well, he was envious of mine because the Liat 4.5 comes with suspenders, and it's all mesh. And I really like these pants. These pants are really great. They got enough armor in them, and they're mesh. And because of the mesh, they're cool. And they were really great, and they've held up really well.
You also had a little issue with the foot peg, but not so bad as
Not
mine
as
was.
bad, yeah.
You know.
But they've held up really well.
Your zippers never.
They smell better than yours too. 'Cause
Yeah, you washed yours.
Now there's a major issue with these that was really disappointing, and it is, because they are mesh, you have to wear a liner to make them waterproof. All right.
What a
pain in the butt, because it's always like, is it going to rain? Is it going to rain? No, it's not going to rain. Then it starts to sprinkle. Then you pull over. Then you got to you have to take your boots off. You have to drop your pants.
Suspenders too, by the way.
Suspenders too, which are.
That means you got to take your jacket off.
Yeah, you got to take your jacket off. So basically, you have to get undressed, and it's starting to rain.
And we're sitting on the side of the road. He's sitting on rocks, and my brother's undressing. But anyway, it was a nice.
People got a nice view. But then you have to zip the liner in. It was a royal pain in the butt. I finally picked up from Revit their essential rain pants, and I would put those over the top of them. This worked out really well with the two of them. It just meant something else that I had to carry. But it worked out good because in Florida, those things are wonderful. But if you're going to deal with rain, I would not have something that you zip in. The jackets, I didn't get their jacket that went with that, but the jacket has it where it goes over the top of it. Why they didn't make it to go over the top of the pants, I kind of understand because it would get worn out, but I definitely would have paid extra for something that fit a little bit better. But it didn't come that way. Now, jacket-wise, instead, I used Adventure Specs jacket, which was waterproof. I like this jacket a lot. It's comfortable. It doesn't take up a lot of space, but it did have one problem that I still have to resolve with them. And that problem was that when it got cold, you bulk up, which is good because it's designed for layering. The only issue was it was 30 some odd degrees, and we pull into a restaurant, and you don't want to go in wearing all this stuff. And I go to unzip it, and because of the way the zipper is done, it's impossible. I could not get out of my jacket. I had to have my brother unzip you. And there's nothing more embarrassing than have somebody have to unzip your zipper.
What are those two guys doing over there?
I know. I was like, it has happened multiple times. I figured out how to get around it, but you basically have to hold it and pull it out and then down. I got to make them a video showing what I'm talking about because they don't understand what I'm talking about. But once it gets jammed in there, it is a royal pain in the butt to get loose. But other than that, it was really great.
And it seemed like no matter how careful you were, it would
no matter what you did,
foul.
It would foul. Now, the other thing that I always carried, and I made Dan carry it too, was a hat. Yeah. Because I can't remember the guy. What's the guy that has those videos? He was totally amazing. He does these adventure video things, that he takes his helmet off and the hat's on, like in 30 seconds. And we would practice that. I never got as good as he was. God, I can't think of his name.
I don't know. You got pretty damn quick.
But the hat helped a lot because the sun's pretty doggone bright. Now, boots. We did the boot thing, and my brother and I had arguments about boots. I got these. These worked out really great for me. Dan's going to he forgot to bring his boots to show you. He's got the ones with the little clip things. He's going to give me a little video clip.
It's a ratchet wire system for making
and that was Revit boot. Those are the waterproof boots. So the advantage to having waterproof boots, mine are not waterproof. But the advantage of him having waterproof boots was that when we had water crossings, I'd send him a march through the water first.
I got to walk through to see how slick how.
But he did discover what happens when they're not always waterproof, are they?
Well, not when it comes over the top of the doggone boots.
So when it comes over the top of the boots, and the arguments that we had about these boots is that He wanted like an adventure boot that you could walk in.
And more of an older style enduro boot that
Enduro.
had, like a Vibram sole on the bottom.
Yeah, so we got these, and I do recommend having a decent sole so you can get grip. Yeah, I know, I'm getting yelled at. Yeah, you can get grip when you're walking in the mud and stuff. It's really helped. But these are pretty doggone protective, and we needed them.
Yeah,
the adventure boot would have been a hurt pup at one point.
Yeah,
so
there was a couple times that the foot got jammed up, and if it weren't for the boot, there would have been a major issue.
So there's a couple things with boot care because you're wearing these things every day, and your feet get sweaty. We found this stuff, a shoe refresher. This thing from
Arm & Hammer.
This stuff is really great. We would pulse in our boots with that. We would store them in our other shoes that we would take with us when we're going to go walking and stuff and at the campsite. We did learn about those that you need to have something that folds up really flat. And ours were like a basic tennis shoe. They took up a little bit more space. I think that if we got something that wasn't as comfortable but was good enough, because we didn't walk a lot, and we had something that would collapse, it would be great. But we would stick this in there, and that way it took up no space.
Well, there was the occasion where your tennis shoe got soaking wet.
Yeah.
And you didn't have time to let it dry out before you hit the road. And David had made mention about losing a shoe while we were going down the road. And that's because, it had gotten soaking wet, and he'd stuck it under the cargo net and didn't tie the lace onto the cargo net itself, and so it bounced out.
Yeah, but we got to the point where and a lot of people put their secondary shoes on the outside. We ended up putting them on the inside, and that worked out a lot better.
A lot better.
Now,
and then
your boot. And this is one of my. This is a luxury
we
item.
Both had
These things are Amazon. Just like these things are a godsend.
And they adjust, and they charge quickly.
Matter of fact,
and go all night.
All night, yeah. So I originally got these because a lot of times tents you get condensation on the top of the tent because of the airflow, and
to make airflow.
Make airflow. So you don't have enough airflow, so you get condensation, and then it drips on you, and that's miserable. So I got this. And these turned out to be a godsend. First of all, when you put them up in the tent and you turn them on, they go all night long. And then you get a good 2 days out of these before you have to charge them. These are great.
And on a hot, muggy night, wow, they made a big difference.
We never had a condensation problem because the tent we had worked out great. But when it was hot and miserable, because we had some really hot, muggy nights, these things were a lifesaver. They were well worth it. They weigh nothing. But the other thing that they were great on is when you do get your boots wet, and they just get wet from wearing them,
like when the water comes over the top of your waterproof boot.
when that happens, your boot stays wet for days, and then your feet stink. That's why we end up getting the Arm & Hammer baking soda stuff, because the boots started to smell. But these things, you just drop them in your boot.
Yeah, you just turn them on, drop them in your boot.
Dries them out in no time.
And the next morning, they are dry. They're done.
It's great. So we actually had 2 apiece. Well worth it because we just stow them in their shoes, one in each shoe.
Yeah. So you stuck these in the shoe as you packed them, and you didn't, didn't really take up space with your regular gear.
The only other riding gear that I had was backpack. So we ended up getting these Moscow backpacks because Dan doesn't like a backpack for stuff. I don't like the weight in the middle of my back, and these put the weight down low in the back.
Over your hips?
Yeah, right over your hips. I liked them. They kept the weight of the water down low. It worked out really great from that standpoint. There was one disappointing thing and I like Moscow motors, don't get me wrong. I'll talk a little bit more about them, but the only disappointing thing is they're not waterproof.
Yeah, that was disappointing because you got stuff in there, and then you get in a pouring down rain, and everything in the darn thing's wet.
Yeah, so
you're like, what?
Yeah, so we're gonna do some. I think my wife sews. I think we can make little things that go around it. Or essentially, what we did on the trails, we took extra Ziploc bags. Anything that we didn't want to get wet,
we put them in a Ziploc before we put in it.
Yeah,
but we only learned that after the fact.
After the fact, I grumbled a lot before the fact. Yeah. Now, up here on the top, they have a little attachment that you can put. And this is, my wife made me get this little Garmin InReach.
Yes, she made him have that.
Yeah, it was calling, I've fallen and I can't get up. So she made me get this. This thing worked out really well. Everybody could track us. Kelly, his wife, knew exactly where we were. It also had the insurance that we get to get us medvaced out if we needed to. We used it quite a bit. There were areas where
No internet,
no internet, no phone,
phone.
nothing. And we could use this as a repeater to do text messaging. So we could let the people at home know that we're okay. This is where we're at. We're out of phone range. We should be back in shortly. And it also gave us weather reports. So we could
It
figure
gave
out.
us peace of mind.
Yeah. So we can know where we are. It's just a little safety factor. And even today, when I go up in the swamps, I take this with me. It's a really good thing.
Did he
to
mention
take.
falling and can't get up? Anyway.
Yeah, let's not go there. I could get up. I had you to help me get up.
Hey, when we went over the tools, there was something
Oh,
that I meant to
yeah.
mention during the tools. So let's.
I gave him
backtrack
grief
it.
about this one.
Yeah, because
I was like,
the reality is that with the tools, I'm a little particular, especially with my ratchets. I mean, I just really don't like using a ratchet as a hammer. But when you're really in a tight spot and you need to get something done, yeah, what are you going to use? A rock or the end of the ratchet. So my wife stuck a hammer in the edge of my toolbox on the bike. And it was a smaller size ball peen hammer. And,
I gave him so much shit.
and that was the primary reason for it, is because I didn't want to have to use my ratchet as a hammer. However, when we got to especially the national parks or the state parks,
Oh man, their campsites. They use.
you're not allowed to
blacktop.
you're not allowed to put your tent on the grass. You have to use their spot that they have for the tent, and it's recycled asphalt.
Yeah.
And I mean, try putting a stake in that. It's like, I mean, you're breaking the rocks that you're able to find to try to drive the dog on stake. And this ball peen hammer, did it work out? Did it help?
It worked great. I mean,
it's
the
like-
first time we used it, I was like, can you get the hammer out? I had to eat crow on that one. So
Yeah.
he got it out, and
Yeah.
it made a big difference.
Yeah, it was a good thing to have.
Yeah, it
Anyway,
was
ball
good.
peen hammer, small, and you can
Yeah.
get them really cheap.
You can
know.
definitely get them cheap. Let's see. Let's talk about cooking. Now, I can't really show you much about cooking at this point.
Because we've loaned out the cooking stove.
Yeah, the cooking stove. I got one of the small butane cooking stoves with the built-in striker. That thing worked really great. We had planned to cook a lot on the camp, on the trip. I had a Sea to Summit, which makes really nice gear. I had their pot and pan thing. Everything folds up. We ended up sending it back because we didn't end up cooking that much. We used mostly the freeze-dried type foods when we did cook. So we were just boiling a titanium pan that a lot of the gear fit in. All our cooking stuff fit into one of these little
Oh yeah,
packets.
it was very
We had
compact.
a little cutting board. We had a knife for cutting. We had everything that we needed in here to clean everything up. The propane, the stove, everything went into there. We use these little Swedish dishcloths to clean stuff with. They're great. They kind of look, in reality, look like this. When they dry out, they're firm. If they get nasty, you can throw them away. You can use them to clean the bike. We took a couple of them. They worked really
And
great.
you still got some left.
Yeah, still got some left. They work really great. My advice on the cooking stuff is we ate out. Well, breakfast was pretty much Cliff Bars and coffee.
Yeah.
Coffee, we use something called a Final Press. My niece has that as well. It's like a little mini French press, but it's metal. It's only made for 1 cup at a time. We figured out how to do 2 cups.
2 cups. Yeah.
It's not bad.
No, it was good.
It worked out, and it's light.
Yeah.
So that worked out really well. So
I mean, neither one of us will probably ever eat Cliff Bars again. But
we'll never. So we'd have coffee at Cliff Bar. Then we'd go on, and we would always try to stop for lunch, and we never. It was only one time really that we had lunch out. Most of the time we would just have jerky and a nut mix. We always stopped. and
a
get
trail
nut
mix that
trail
David
mix.
put together.
Yeah, we'd always.
Because my brother, he's got a sensitive palate, but I have to say that he knows how to pick some really good tasting cashews to go in that trail
Yeah,
mix.
so we had a good trail mix.
Wow.
Good beef jerky. That got us through lunch. And then dinner. So we would have freeze-dried foods for dinner if we weren't eating out. And it just made it really simple and easy because all we had to do was boil water, pour the water into the packet,
Let it sit.
let it set, and we usually wrap a towel around it to help maintain the heat. And we tried different brands.
And surprisingly enough,
Yes, the one that turned out to be probably the most consistent was Mountain something that you just get at Walmart.
Walmart,
Yeah, the
Go-
beef stroganoff
Imagine that.
was really pretty good. We tried the more expensive ones, the Peak. Peak was inconsistent. Sometimes it was really good, and sometimes it was just disgusting. I think one of the worst ones we ever had was one of theirs. I think we even talked about it in the video. So that was disappointing. Another one that was actually turned out really pretty good was a vegan brand, Farm to Summit. That was a really good brand. And what we would do is, what was it? Green chili and macaroni and cheese. And what we did is we threw our beef jerky in it.
Yeah.
And that turned out that was one of the better ones actually. So you can spice it up. So that worked out really good. You can find those on Garage Gear. I'll put a link to that. That's actually a good place to get some lightweight camping gear. So we kept it simple. We ate out when we could. We tried to stay away from Mexican for obvious reasons.
And you know what? I don't think we ever once hit any of the fast food places, like, you know.
Yeah, I think the only time we hit fast food place was to grab an iced tea, get out of the heat, and regroup and see exactly where we were and where we were going. But we stayed away from all that. So the food was actually, we lucked out on the food.
And even though, you know, the freeze dried was pretty barfy at times, you know, it fed us.
It did fit us. It was really good. And there was one time that I was really looking forward to dinner because somebody had given us some beer on the trail, and well, we won't talk about that.
Well, we already talked about that in the prior.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the camping. So since we talked about aerating, let's see.
Well, one thing I'd like to, we haven't talked about hygiene at all, really, but I have to say the Summit wilderness wipes, I use pretty much every day.
Yeah.
For wiping pits, because we couldn't get a shower every day, and it was a must for me just to keep my brother from whining so much.
We won't go there. But with washing, we got these towels.
Oh man, those were great.
Yeah, this is just REI. We probably got ones that were a little too big.
I don't think so. I think they were just right, actually.
Yeah, they're good size. You could probably go with one about half that size, but this turned out to be a godsend when it got cold because you could actually use it as a little bit of a blanket.
We used it for everything from a blanket to putting underneath the sleeping gear to keep it from sliding on the tent because we didn't get the most level spot. They were really nice to have.
Yeah. And speaking of sleeping, we got the Nemo Dagger. We ended up getting the 3-person tent. It weighed about 4 pounds. We split everything up. I took it out of the regular bag.
I got to carry the poles.
Yeah, so we split it up so we had half the weight. We got the 3-person tent because they lie when they tell you. It's a 3-person's really a 2-person, and a 2-person is really a 1-person, and the 1-person is for midgets. Because they're small.
Yeah.
But it was a well-made tent. It was highly ventilated.
And it had room enough at the ends of it to put your helmet in, to put your, a lot of times we'd put our inner clothes under our riding gear underneath the bag, sleeping bag and stuff.
It worked out great.
Yeah.
And it had vestibules where you can put your boots, keep your smelly boots outside in the vestibules, then keep the dampness out of them. And we were in some pretty torrential rain and freezing rain, and that tent stayed dry. So I highly recommend getting a good tent and a lightweight tent.
Well, this tent was basically an all mesh tent with a rain/wind tent over the top of it. So it was really like 2 tents in one. and it was a very comfortable, easy to regulate tent. I loved it.
Yeah, it was a good tent.
Yeah.
And the poles, Dan carried the poles. We put them in a Moscow Moto pole pocket. This thing that worked out really great, and we actually used it to help stabilize the packing.
Yes.
And that worked out awesome. So I can't
pull it up underneath the other gear to keep it all, and able to put our straps through it to get everything nice and stabilized.
Yeah, and I can't say enough about them. They're really good. Matter of fact, we use their side pockets to pack some of our tent. We would put the rain fly in this because rain flies get wet, and we didn't want to put it in with our dry stuff.
Right.
We actually had a seam cut out, and I got a hold of them. They were able to get us on the trail a replacement, no questions asked. It's like they told us how to fix it temporarily, and they sent us a new one, and it worked out wonderful.
Oh, yeah.
So
It was...
Moscow Moto, they make great stuff.
And they got good support.
And they had really good support, and I think that's important. So it's definitely a company I really feel good about. Now, back to... the tent, the Nemo. We use their sleeping pads, their full-size pads. They're kind of the middle of the road as far as weight. They're actually less than a pound, and they're really nice that way, but I'm talking about temperature-wise. They were great, and when it was warm, when it got a little cold, they're not. If you're in 30 degrees, you want something that has a little bit more thermal protection in it. We would pack inside this little Flex. This is one of our luxury items.
That's not a luxury item, Dave. That's a necessity.
Yeah, this thing is. You just turn it on and it lasts for about a week, and it would blow up your. So you would throw this thing in there, set it on it, it would blow it up, and it would also evacuate it because you want to roll them up everything really small so it doesn't take up a lot of room.
Yeah,
so
I mean,
really
when it got
great.
done, I mean, it was as flat as a flitter. I mean, you couldn't get.
Great.
Yeah, it really worked out nice.
And being an old guy, we tried a bunch of different pillows.
Did you say old guy? Anyway,
I have to sleep with a pillow, and this was Trekology. This is just out of, and it'll pack smaller, really small. This came out of Amazon. This was like a $15 item, and this was the best pillow for me. And I tried all the different ones, and some of them were ridiculously expensive. This turned out really good, and it's a fairly full size. Now Dan needed a little bit different one, and his daughter has it for a camping trip. Yeah. What brand was that? It was just a smaller one.
I used it every day for 3 months, and I can't tell you what brand it was.
It was. I'll put it in the things, but it was a smaller one. It fit his neck better because he doesn't have a bend in his neck very well, so it was a comfortable pillow.
Yeah, and I liked it better than the one I used at home because I could adjust it, and if it bothered me during the night, I could let a little air out. But again, that little air pump that Dave has, that thing's just great.
All right, so one of the items that we also used was a cot. Weighs at about 3.5 pounds, and we took it out of its bag and spread it up this thing. I love this cot. It just weighs too damn much. It's a pain in the butt to pack. So we did end up sending it home when we got to Colorado just to lighten our load.
But man, were they nice to sleep
They're
on.
nice.
Like sleeping in the tent after having that, you're like, oh, really?
Yeah, it was wonderful. But there is weight. And there is
the poles and everything to deal with.
It's a little bit of a pain. And speaking of other luxury items, we got the Helinox chair. Because all the videos have chairs. I love this chair. It only weighs. It's under 2 pounds. It's wonderful, especially after we put the plastic golf balls on it, so it doesn't dig into the ground. It's a wonderful chair. It's just too much bulk, too much weight. Most of the campsites either had a log that we could sit on or a picnic table we could sit on. We didn't take it out that much. When we did, it was wonderful to take your boots off and sit in, but we ended up sending it back as well. We ended up.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there was one shower in particular that had no, it was a campsite.
It was a campsite.
And it had no hooks to hang anything. The floor was soaking wet from other people's use.
And nasty.
Nasty. We have our flip-flops that we kept with us. But David carried his chair in there with his towel, And did you take your yoga mat too?
No, I didn't.
No, you didn't take the yoga mat then, but
Should have.
yeah, but he was able to put his clothes on that chair. He was able to put his towel on that chair, and silly me, I didn't take mine, so it was so uncomfortable. And David came out whistling, and I came out kicking stuff.
But I won't take it again because it's just too much weight. Unless we're doing short trips. Anything long wise, it's just too much weight. I mean, when we got rid of the stuff that we didn't use when we were in Colorado, we lost about 10 pounds.
Yeah.
So we got our weight down about 30. 30 pounds is a really good target weight to go for.
Yeah.
Because you got to remember
I didn't think that 10 pounds would make as much difference as it did, but it really did.
It does. It absolutely does. So let's take a look. Oh, so I have this tarp. And it folds up in this, and frankly, I didn't put it in this. I would just stuff it around everything that goes in my dry bag. It takes up no weight. This thing was great for a variety of things. We used it to cover our bikes up.
Yeah.
Because we were always, like everybody, you're a little paranoid about your bikes being ripped off. We figured out of sight, out of mind. So we would throw these over, these little bungees to tie it down. It kept them dry, kept the dew off of them, kept it out of sight, out of mind. What we ended up doing is, I had a couple of those little gun locks. They're just real little bitty lock with a cable on it. And I had two of them, and we would just put our bikes together and lock the peg legs,
the
foot pegs together. Because we figured if anybody is going to, a real thief is going to be able to get around anything. This just makes it inconvenient. The two bikes are locked together. It's not going to be a quick snatch and grab. And then I also got an alarm, one of those, and the alarm was just off Amazon, and we put it on the front disc on one of the bikes, and put the indicator that it's present on the other bike. And if you touch the bike, and Dan found out a couple times.
Oh my goodness,
this
I'm
thing
very
would go
sensitive.
off.
So, and what that thing cost, like $14?
Yeah, it was cheap. It was
it was like, wow, and very sensitive, because I mean, David kept telling me, get everything done to the bike you want to get done before we put this on, because I mean, you just touch the bike and it was really good. There was only one time that there was wind that it kind of set it off.
It set it off because it blew this off.
Yeah,
which was good because we were able to go down and take care of it.
Right.
But most of the places when we stayed at hotels, they let you keep the bike up front for the most part, or they're close to the windows in the room. So yeah, it was okay. This thing we also used as a rain fly at times.
Yes.
So I had a lot of uses. We're still working out how to do with the poles. The poles were too heavy. I have to find lightweight poles, and we ended up sending the poles back. But we kept this because you can string it up. We kept a little Dyneema cord with us that we used, and if I needed to,
that stuff's great.
This is lightweight, and it doesn't take up any room.
Like the parachute cord is twice as bulky as that.
Yeah, and this is stronger.
And that's stronger.
Yeah, it's stronger than parachute cord. So it's really good stuff. I did have one of these goofy little Sea to Summit things. Sea to Summit is great. It's just for clothesline.
Well, you know what? We used
it. Yeah, we used it. And it takes up
Sea to Summit clothesline. Yeah,
it takes up no room.
I was like making fun of it at first, but I found wanting to string it up.
So the one item we didn't use, and I don't know if I'll bring it back, but I take it with me when I go in the swamp, is I did take a compass with us because we got lost in the Florida swamps, and
our compasses wouldn't even work.
Yeah, we
had no cell phone connection. We got nothing.
We were having trouble with the GPS,
and it was overcast, so you couldn't see the sun. You didn't know what direction you're going.
So we carried it, but we never used it.
Incidentally, that was like supposed to be what? An hour, 2 hour ride.
Yeah, let's not go there.
And then we ended up
let's not go there.
How many hours were we out there?
We're not talking about that. Yeah, we both sunk our bikes in the swamp mud. Another item we didn't really use is first aid kit. I kept a first aid kit. A little bulky. I would probably downsize this a little bit next time, but it's hard to say because there's stuff in here that you would use, but thank goodness.
I mean, if you busted yourself open and needed that was...
We had an uneventful trip as far as injuries for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, the worst thing you got was that hole in the bottom of your foot.
Yeah, let's not go there. That was at the campsite. That wasn't riding.
Yeah,
All right, so we took flip-flops. You always want flip-flops for the showers and stuff. I made a mistake of wearing them around the campsite, and I found one of the tent pegs.
Oh,
with the
yeah.
flip-flop.
Yeah,
it was not...
It hurt. I mean, it was over a week of hurt.
Yeah, we won't go there. Another item that we did not use was a saw. we carry this cool saw, but we just zip tied it to the bike. Didn't need it. There was a couple times that we would have needed it, but we were in,
My brother had this theory about the worm.
oh yeah, the early bird catches the worm,
Right?
And the
We've
worm,
all heard that.
yeah, and
But
the worm that sleeps in lives another day. We were always slow to get out on the trail in the morning.
and that's mostly my fault. But
But
we were
regardless,
the worm
it
that
worked out for us because there were areas that, because of storms, there was a lot of trees down. And
tornadoes
multiple
came
times,
through,
yeah,
and a lot of trees down.
multiple times the trees were already cleared out. Matter of fact, one point we found one of the guys that was keeping the trails clean, and he was out there with his chainsaw clearing the
He
trail
was an
for us.
old guy, too.
Old guy, yeah.
Well, I mean, we're old guys, but he was an old guy.
Yeah, he was in his late 80s with his Jeep, and that's what he does. That's his fun thing. He goes out and keeps the trails open with his chainsaw. So that was really pretty cool. We didn't use that. We did use another odd item, which is a tow strap.
Oh, God.
We had to, man, and I will tell you, if you're, I think it's always a good idea to ride with somebody, but practice the use of the tow strap. I think the only time...
We know we practiced, but we didn't practice enough.
We didn't practice enough, and it's the only time we had kind of words with each other was with the tow strap. Yeah.
But it was heavy traffic. We were in town, and we were trying to get to a place we didn't really know.
Right, and there was construction. So, and that was when I was having trouble with the carburetor, and all it was...
How far did we tow?
A couple miles.
Yeah, I thought it was about 5 miles.
Yeah.
But that was a long 5 miles.
It was a long 5 miles. And we still talk to each other afterwards. But but
the tow strap is necessary.
And they take up no room at all. As far as backpacks, we ended up using the Tusk stuff. You know, I looked at the Moscow Moto. I didn't know if we were going to be doing this again. And I just couldn't see the expense of that versus what the Tusk stuff was. Now, these are small Tusk bags because we don't like tank bags.
Again, not waterproof.
These are they're not waterproof.
But they do have a liner that
But they tell you they're not waterproof.
And they give you a liner that goes in it.
You bought these.
You bought that?
Yeah, I bought extra liners. So you could use a liner that you use in the back.
Saddle bags, that didn't come with those bags?
The other bags do, and I'll show that in a minute. But these don't. But I bought extra, and we threw these in there, and that kept everything dry. But these, and you'll see them on the bike, these go over the tank and on the
down by the sides. There's like a saddle bag on the bike.
These were great. The first aid kit on mine went in one side. The other side was just stuff that we routinely would use. I liked these. These were great.
Matter of fact, I'll keep mine on just all the time, just because they're that convenient and that nice.
Yeah, they worked out really
And because we got the oversized plastic tanks on the bike, you know, a drop or, you know...
Yeah, protected the tank.
This help protects the tank. I mean, I'd rather tear this bag up than as to tear the tank up.
And frankly, I mean, 4 times did I drop the bike 4 times? 4 times I dropped the bike on gravel and in Colorado on the passes on rough stuff. These bags held up really well.
Very
they
well.
are well worth the money. There's good. I've got many more trips left in these guys.
Yeah.
Okay. So we had them stuffed to the gills.
And when it got really cold, you could tuck your knees in behind them.
Oh, and we did too. I was freezing my butt off. And when it was raining, you could tuck behind them.
Yeah.
So we did use the Tusk bags. And if you, it's hard to get a real good look, but you got the little bag in the back.
Yeah, this is where I kept that. That's where I kept the oil.
Yeah, so he kept the oil there. I kept the chain cleaner there, and
some of the tire tools in there.
Some of the tire tools back in there. And these had a waterproof bag that went in the inside of them, and you would pull those out. Yeah, you would pull those out. Now the downside to it was that, and these are the waterproof bags. The downside to these waterproof bags is that when you pull them out, there is no putting them back in.
Yeah, you
had to unload all the gear and put them back in,
and then reload your gear.
Reload the gear. That was a pain in the butt. Moscow Moto has, I think, a better system that way.
Well, yeah, it's got the hole in the bottom. That
you just pull it through, and I think that really works really nice. But These are like new. I mean, we kept them on the bike for 3 months. We rode hard.
Yeah, and they took some beating.
They took a beating. They held up really well. I did modify. Moscow Moto, their little quick disconnect. I put that on these. This worked great. This is a wonderful system.
Yeah, I mean, if it weren't for that,
that made it easy
because
we would just slip these off and take them into the hotel.
Yeah, when we were in especially areas that you didn't feel very comfortable with, we would not leave any of our gear on the bike, and we'd slide it off and take it in the motel room with us.
Yeah, that held up.
That made it possible.
Little things that we left out. One is for changing tires. This is this little Sea to Summit, which is a really good company for camping stuff. But we also use this for putting our cooking oil in. But this is our tire goop. And this stuff is wonderful. You just smear it around the rim. It makes popping the tire off a lot easier. Putting the tire back on, a breeze. I mean, it's like night and day difference using this stuff. So highly recommend it. It's worth the little bit of space you give up to take some, because sooner or later you're going to get a flat.
I mean, I've changed tires before and I was amazed at how much that stuff helped.
Yeah.
And, David was talking earlier about, practicing this and that. And I have to give my brother credit in that before we went on the trip, he broke down and mounted new tires on both of our bikes by himself and got very proficient in using that equipment.
Yeah.
And if it had been me, I would have taken them to the shop and let them mount them up. But no, he got to where he did 4 tires, before we went on the trip, and it definitely paid off when we had that flat. It showed itself.
Yeah, it did pay off because we had the right tools, and I didn't have to try to find a YouTube video to try to figure out how to take it.
Yeah, he wasn't ding-donging around with it. He was down to business.
It made it pretty simple, easy to take off. Although I hated doing it, but it was well worth it. One of the things I found that I used was this little tool here. This is the jack. It's a Maverick Pro. It basically comes apart and it's easy to stick in your tool roll. But this allows us to jack the bike up. You can stick it up under the swing arm, and all you do is tilt the bike over and set it up on the swing arm.
And the rear wheel comes up off the ground.
Yeah, and it is very stable. We used it to oil our chains, and we oiled our chains a lot. And then it made it real easy to deal with the flat. You can do the front wheel as well. We had to find a balancing point on the bike and just drilled a hole in the
skid plate.
And this worked out really, really well. And it's also a good place to put, baling wire, and we have a little duct tape, but I prefer the Gorilla Tape, so I just rolled some extra Gorilla Tape on it. And it comes in a nice little carrying case to keep with you, so it's pretty nice. The only other thing we didn't bring up equipment-wise is our little scan disc. This is a 4 terabyte disc. That's what I use to download the video on. I don't think I would use this next time. Next time I would just buy just a bunch of cards and catalog them, and when I get home, deal with it. It was just too much to try to deal with doing video editing on the trail. My hat's off to those people that do that. I can't do it. So definitely, these are great, but I would just do cards. The only other thing that I can talk about is this little goofy thing. My brother gave me all sorts of heck about when I first got it, and it's a backpack, and it folds up and goes into this little bitty pouch like this, so it takes up no room.
All self-contained.
Self-contained. This thing was a blessing when we went grocery shopping. When we went to do laundry, we put all the dirty clothes in Dan's bag. I kept mine for the clean clothes.
And he's not kidding.
And the groceries. It's also what we used when we flew home to hold our toiletries and on our clothes and stuff.
Yeah, the things
so
we brought
it
home.
was very versatile. It was a great little thing to have. So a lot of times those little bitty things that don't take up a lot of space and don't weigh a lot can really make a difference and make a trip comfortable.
Right.
And our trip was pretty daggum comfortable. We took the long route around, but we had a great time. Probably will thin things out even more on our next trip. We have to go on our next trip. But when we got to Colorado, we dumped 10 pounds of our stuff that we didn't need. And I would recommend camping a lot, doing a couple trips before you do the TAT, and just decide what you need, what you really have to have versus what you want, okay? The less weight you have, the easier it is to deal with the bike.
Right.
You got anything to add?
Did we?
Oh, we didn't talk about this.
You're right.
This
The fuel
is
cell.
the fuel cell. because there's some areas that you start to run low on fuel. No, we didn't, because we've got the
Well,
4
we were
gallon.
on reserve.
We were on
and
reserve. We were doing some fumes a couple of times.
Yeah, fumes a couple of times,
but we never did fill this up.
Yeah.
But if I was carrying less than 4 gallons and I couldn't get a good 150 miles to a tank, I would definitely do this again. The giant loop bags are awesome. We did use their water bags. I showed it to you, but my niece has it. They're 2-liter bags. They're made of the same material. They have a little fill thing at the bottom.
very durable.
Yeah, we use them. We always kept 2 liters on each of our bike of water, and we ran out at times. They were great for refilling our bladders in our backpack because they've got a little nozzle on
And
the
at the
bottom.
campsite, you set it at the end of the picnic table or hang it from a tree, and it's got a little nozzle that comes out, and you pull it, and you can wash your hands or get water for your coffee.
It was really good.
It was
we
really a
didn't
nice addition.
Use one of the blue filters for filtering water, but we only had to do that once. We were in a national, the National Forest campsite. The water
They had
was,
this big old-fashioned pump where you had to pump the water up.
the water was a little iffy, so we filtered it. I definitely highly recommend just taking one. They're about that big. Just keep it just to make sure you're all right.
Yeah. I mean, I felt much more comfortable, and we did not get the runs from drinking that water.
No
so so it was a good thing.
Yeah, so it's all good. You got anything to add about this trip?
I'm doggone it, it's over.
I know. We have to think
You know?
of Continental Divide.
Yeah. Well,
Georgia BDR?
BDR, yeah.
Yeah, BDR.
Try
All right.
BDR for a bit.
All right. Take care. Thanks for watching.
Bye.
Bye. Stop recording.